This video is going to focus on creating pockets worked in reverse stockinette without having to pick up stitches at the bottom. It's a little bit like a provisional cast on for your stitches while you're working your sweater, but the nice part is you don't have to break your yarn to create those stitches. To work this video sample, I have got a double pointed needle. You can use a circular if you prefer. I recommend having this a couple of sizes smaller than the project size needle, and then our quote-unquote project. I've just knit up a small swatch of reverse stockinette stitch, and we're going to start with a wrong side facing. So we're going to turn it around so that we're looking at our knit stitches. So my little sample here has got 20 stitches cast on. Obviously your sweater is going to be a lot larger, but over these 20 stitches, I'm going to say that my instructions require me to knit a 10 stitch pocket. So there's going to be 5 stitches on either side. So I'm just going to knit my first 5 stitches. And then we're going to work a series of knit front and backs to create the bottom of our pocket. So I'll have 10 KFB or knit front back stitches in a row. Okay, here we are, 9 and 10. So you can see my stitches, I've got my little purl bumps all the way along for those 10 stitches. And now we're simply going to knit to the end of the row. When we turn back our work to the right side, and in this case, because we're working in reverse stockinette, to the purl side. So now that we have the right side facing, we have to do 2 things at the same time while we work across this row. Obviously, we're going to purl across to stay in pattern, but we're also going to place 1 out of the 2 stitches from each of the previous KFB stitches onto a needle in front of our work on hold so that we can pick up those stitches later to work the pocket. So we ended with a KFB and 5 live stitches. To stay in pattern so that the knit portion of the knit stitch of the KFB from the previous row stays in pattern is we have to knit 1 more than we did on the purl 1 more, pardon me, than the previous row. So we ended the last row with a K5. So we're going to start with a purl 6, and then we're going to slip a stitch. Now, unlike traditionally where we would slip a stitch onto our working needle, we actually want to grab our extra needle that's a size or 2 smaller and slip that stitch onto the needle and hold it in front. The next stitch will be a purl stitch and we'll stay live on our working needles. And then we'll slip the next stitch onto our secondary needle in front. Again, we'll purl the next stitch and slip the next stitch. And you're going to keep going in this pattern until you have worked all 10 of the stitches, or whatever the number of stitches is that you have for your pocket size, and have that number of stitches sitting on your front needle. So I'm going to work to the end and show you how that goes. So I've got 9 stitches on my front needle, so I've got 1 more that I need to work, but something just occurred to me as I was working these final stitches is as you purl that stitch on the back needle, you want to be sure that you're pulling your working yarn up between the needles and it's not coming in front of this stitch, or pardon me, I should get that into frame, that it's not coming in front of your needle before you slip that next stitch. You want to be sure that the working yarn is between your needles when you slip your stitch. So there we go. I've got all 10 stitches on my front needle, and I can now purl to the end of my row using my live stitches. So you're going to have 2 needles now parallel to one another. The smaller needle will be the stitches, or the needle holding your pocket stitches. And you may find that you want to transfer those to a piece of waste yarn rather than having this stay as a needle while you're working. It's up to you. I know when I was working my pocket the first time, I found it a little bit fiddly to have that remain as a needle. But now you're free to turn your work and continue in pattern, working across your project needle. So in my case, the larger needle, the size 8 needle. And those stitches will remain on hold for you until it's time to work the pocket on the front of your sweater. Then you can simply place these stitches back on a live needle, rejoin your working yarn at the bottom right-hand corner, and start working in pattern up from there. Then you'll simply have to match or stitch down each side of the pocket when the pocket height is complete. So there you go. That's a KFB provisional pocket. I guess that's the best way to describe it. And happy knitting.